Elon Musk and other AI experts are calling for a pause in the development of powerful AI tools. But is this a case of trying to put the genie back into the bottle? We'll explore this next up on Today in Tech. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I am Keith Shaw. An open letter coordinated by the Future of Life Institute, which lists Elon Musk as an external advisor, calls for a 6-month moratorium on the development of generative AI tools like ChatGPT in order to give the industry time to set safety standards for AI design and also prevent potential harms of the riskiest AI technologies. Joining me on the show to discuss this idea is Jason Mars, PhD. He's the Associate Professor of Computer Science and Engineering at the University of Michigan and co-director of UM's Clarity Lab. He was on our show about a month ago. One of my favorite guests. Welcome back to the show, Jason.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Awesome topic. Very, very interesting.
Yeah. So what were your thoughts when you were telling me before the show that you received this invite to sign the letter. So just kind of give me your thoughts on, do you think this is a good idea? What did you think when you received the invitation to sort of sign it?
Yeah, no. So I received the invitation a couple days before it hit news in a big way when Elon and Steve Wozniak also signed on. I didn't sign it. So I think there's a lot of these interesting and somewhat valid concerns around how this kind of technology is going to shape reality.
Yeah.
However, there's a massive, I believe it's part of an overreaction. I believe it adds to the fear mongering. It adds to, and it's also somewhat misplaced. There's a lot of downstream implications on making any kind of attempt that can only be implemented through a congressional legal means as policy for the nation is the only practical way you can implement this. And the downstream effects are way more incredibly disruptive in and of it themselves, and also ineffective. Like you can't in the realm of software, it's where basically all of the creations come from human minds. You can't really put a moratorium on the things people invest their time into and work on and develop with access to technology en masse. It'd be impossible to define what a large language model is in respect to the kinds of things that are dangerous. And it'll also put a pause on the development of a technology that many folks globally are developing, which would stunt, essentially, we're already at risk of losing some of America losing its monopoly or its advantage when it comes to technological development in the world economy.
Yeah.
This would stunt our ability to be relevant. We're already losing the social media game with TikTok being one of the largest platforms in America, surpassing all of the copycats that are trying to replicate it in America.
Yeah.
So you can imagine what an opportunity this would create for other nations to advance and overtake the technology, especially given that it's public how it was built.
Yeah, if this was like a US based moratorium, then all of a sudden, I'm pretty sure China's not going to sign that, and other nations that are developing AIs are not going to sort of jump into this. What are their concerns about the risks of sort of this race? Because my first impression was like, It felt like with Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, it was just like, whoa, guys, we weren't involved in this, so we want to have and it just felt like, hey, look, guys, the race already started. Like, you can't just pause a race in the middle, and you just have to keep going, or be better and catch up.
Exactly. This train has left the station, right?
There's a good one too,
This is not one. There's two kinds of ways you can think about these problems. So there are potential risks. So let me first state there are potential risks, and then I'm going to talk about the approaches that I subscribe to on how to reason about what to do given those risks. Okay. So the risks are real. So right now we live in a world where people are consuming the information they would like to consume, and the more interesting and bombastic that information is, there's almost a propensity to believe it, right? So now we have a step function in our ability to fabricate things that look real. These models are trained to mimic real based on what it has been trained as real. And so we're seeing this in many modalities. I recently saw a video where someone was using Obama's voice to say what they wanted to say.
Right.
And it was in real time, rendering a voice that was convincingly Obama. Could you imagine someone mimicking Biden's voice and calling upon all Americans to do something hateful and atrocious?
Right.
And so you have an opportunity for misinformation, fabrication, and to mislead the public. But this isn't novel. We've had Photoshop for a very long time. Right? There wasn't a moratorium on Photoshop, and we could fabricate photos for a long time. We can do it a little bit more convincingly and across more modalities now, and people are likely to misuse it. And we have to educate the public now to be even more thoughtful and suspicious of what they see. And there's an education journey there. So that's a real risk, right?
Yeah.
There's also more economic risks with. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, there's always been bad actors from whatever technology has come out with. Like you said, we didn't ban Photoshop because some people were putting, somebody's head on someone else's body.
Exactly.
Obviously, you don't halt AI just because someone's using it to fake Obama or Biden or Donald Trump or whatever like that they're doing out there. It's more about educating the users of such stuff. To do that. So is that their main? Absolutely. Is that their main reason? And it's not because again, there's a quote here that I wanted to read you, and this was from one of the guys that I think signed the. No, he's one of the organizers of the letter, and this is the quote. "Quote: It is unfortunate to frame this as an arms race. It is more of a suicide race. It doesn't matter who is going to get there first. It just means that humanity as a whole could lose control of its own destiny." I mean, when you talk like that, then you're talking like killer robots, Terminators, and we're doomed because AI is going to get smarter, and it's like, whoa, like that's not what this is doing, right? Or
exactly,
is it?
Exactly.
Or, maybe I'm just naive, and maybe this is something that doing. It does feel a little bit like the sky is falling from this group.
Yeah. I mean, and this is what gets clicks, and this is what gets attention, right? Especially when it's coming from folks like Elon Musk, but the real issue is. That's absolutely not the case. We are going to have to adapt. So there's two approaches. There's prevention, where we stop progress, right? Well, let's stop it. Let's figure out what to do, and then we'll restart. We'll unpause progress. But really, the attention and the energy should go into adaptation. And how do we now live in this new world? How do we anticipate how things will change, and then stay ahead of the implications insofar that some might be dangerous, right? I think there's other implications that are more important than misuse of information. There's other implications that are much more foundational. There's a lot of, like, for instance, there's a lot of specialized skills in the world, right? Mm-hmm. We've got journalists that win Pulitzer Prizes, for example, for how they exert their stories. That kind of thing needs to be re-understood, because the barrier to entry to writing a phenomenal story is going to be reduced, because now more people are going to be able to access the help of some of these systems to write incredibly brilliant stories. So that actually applies on an economic scale. Now the things where the economy of it, the wages that certain employees get being high for their specialized skill, now more people will be able to do that thing. Right. And so that might create differences in the demand supply. Those are the kinds of interesting questions I would want leadership to be pondering and thinking about. How do we stay relevant and understand 5 years down the line how this is going to change the economy and so forth? But this knee-jerk reaction kind of, sensational standpoint is not useful.
What concerns you about AI at the moment? I mean, obviously you're enthusiast of this idea and a lot of these tools that come out. You mentioned on the last show that you use it all the time in your programming, like when you're coding, and it helps you become more productive in the work that you're doing. And I think you said you're using it in your classes as well. You're using it to teach.
Absolutely.
So and your students are allowed to use it as long as they sort of reference it, right? Yeah. So what are your concerns about some of these tools at this point? Is it because another big concern I've heard is about explainability, that there's a lot of people that still don't understand why the AI sort of spit out what it did. Like it didn't. Explainability has been explained to me for 3 to 5 years now, and I still don't understand it. So if I still don't understand it, it's probably an issue, right?
Yeah. No. Absolutely. Well, and the thing is, my concerns really are manifested in what we're seeing happening currently. My concerns is most people won't understand it. Congress people don't know what a website is. Is YouTube a website? Like folks don't understand what's going on. And so bad choices might happen. Sensational things like this may cause a congressional hearing. Elon Musk might be invited to say something. Votes get passed, and then the dynamic stops. Another really important thing to understand about AI that a lot of folks don't understand is, and this might sound like a vote toward a moratorium, which still I think is crazy, but when we develop as a community of scientists, when we, in the art and the discipline of innovating when it comes to AI models, deep learning models, that kind of science is becoming more of a discovery science, understanding nature, than it is an engineering science where we're trying to build something to solve a goal. A lot of times when we build these models and we train them in various ways, we actually don't know what that model is going to be able to do. We'll have some thoughts as to why this mode of training and why this style of neural network should have the capacity to do something. But once we're done training it, we've been blown away, and it manifests itself in the papers. In the papers themselves, they'll say often things like, we never expected the model to be able to do this, but look at what it did, right? And so every GPT-3, what the paper does publish doesn't talk about it being able to write code, but then we discover after the fact, this thing can actually write code.
Yeah.
ChatGPT was primarily motivated to create a PC GPT-3, unbiased, doesn't say offensive things.
Yeah.
But it actually produced a GPT, a conversational AI that did things way beyond what I anticipate the creators developed. So it's a very discovery science, and who knows what we'll discover these models being able to do once we tinker with them.
Yeah. Do you understand that that is what could freak out some people, if you told me, for example, that you engineered and designed a train, and then you wrote something about it that says, yeah, we were really surprised when that train started to fly.
Like, exactly.
So maybe we should pump the brakes a little bit. To see or is it something that maybe it's something that can't be understood, or because when I try to read some of these papers and it's like, woof, it goes right over my head. It's just like, no. And I'm hoping that there are smarter people than me that are reviewing these things and going, like, when you read that, where you were like, wait, what? You were surprised that it did this, or
Yeah, I'm also. A lot of it is actually breathtaking, even to the researchers, as to what these technologies are able to do when trained. The fundamental difference is when it comes to the practicality from a societal perspective of taking an approach of prevention or slowing down of this kind of progress. It's fundamentally impractical, and it's impractical in ways where it would be more practical for, let's say, nuclear engineering, right? Like when it comes to, we definitely have to put a moratorium on the production of plutonium and splitting it because, there's a difference in the digital realm where everyone has the tools to, if everyone could dig in their backyard and access plutonium, the practicality of putting a moratorium on the whole world doing that doesn't work, right? In software, we're in that realm where people will do it underground, and then it'll be even more dangerous. It's almost like people can do it in secret and then produce false information much more effectively if it's done in secret. China and Russia can produce fake media that's epically more real.
Yep.
And if you have a stunted America that doesn't even understand this technology because we have a moratorium on it, we're more at risk. So there's a practical element to that. And this is where prevention versus adaptation is an interesting debate. I just had a very deep debate with a climate scientist, one of the best in the world.
Yep.
He was over for dinner and we were talking about climate change. And he's like, oh, absolutely. This is a real thing. It's absolutely produced, by humans. It's crazy, but he thinks it's irrational to think we're not going to raise the degree 1.5 degrees, 2 degrees. It's like that's going to happen. Everyone is focused on prevention of that happening, where we should understand how we adapt societies to live in a world that's 2 degrees hotter. Right. And so and so we don't hear in public policy an adaptation focus.
Right.
Because public policy loves
putting the brakes on things. Yeah.
And now we all have to pause the world, and then and that's almost more appealing to the psyche than what's cognitively harder, which is almost re-engineering the world, assuming that these things are going to happen. But that's the right approach, right? Because if all is lost, if we don't prevent something and we're not prepared, we're way more at risk than if we use our ingenuity to re-understand what the world should be like.
Yeah, and this letter did sort of raise awareness of sort of this thing. It was a high profile. You're like I said, this is going to generate clicks. Do you think that this then turns into something where a conference is held or some sort of like high level discussion and people start talking at this thing, but that's still not going to prevent like others from not attending and just doing what they want to do. And, now you've got big companies like Google and Microsoft involved, and they're like, well, we're doing this because we want to stay in business and we want to, help our customers get better results and get better answers. It's almost like trying to get people to understand a common standard for, networking, for example, or, interoperability issues. And that took years for people to sort of come together. Do you think that maybe this will lead down to a road of a standard AI development or some sort of common framework?
Well, you see, this is what we...
Yeah.
Absolutely, right? So the interesting thing about what's happened is the AI is here now. And now we have to understand what to do.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned, conferences. There's a lot of different viewpoints and forecasts as to how the world changes, right? Do we have this centralized AI there's a lot of funding of companies and a lot of thought that the future is we're going to have these centralized AI resources that are kind of regulated by the government, and they're like a utility that's going to be consumed by society, right? That's one thought process because it's really expensive to train. They're huge, and it's a lot like a power delivery to a grid.
Right.
So I don't think that's going to happen at all, right? That's a very thinking in the now. Mm-hmm. All of the scientists, the computer scientists in the world, I won't say all, let me say much of the energy of the global computer scientists in the world is understanding how we make these technologies smaller, more wieldable, easier to train, faster to train, easier to get as smart, with less power, with less energy. That's all of our focus. The first computer was 2, buildings big before we had a PC.
Right.
And now we have phones in our pocket that society will understand how to take these technologies and wield it. So I don't think it's a practical solution to think that we'll have not this decentralized, everyone democratize access to AI.
Right.
But the high level point, though, is what you suggest is exactly the kind of energy we should exert. We should have special conferences. We should have new kinds of think tanks about just answering the questions of how will society change?
Right.
Because deriving the solutions will then be a straight line, in my opinion. But it's making that prediction as to, given what we know about how technology evolves, given what we know about what we observe, the new digital ecosystem being, where everyone's getting their news from social media, et cetera, when you put together these interdisciplinary fields of study and understanding to predict what are the 10 changes to the world 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Having the best minds think about those changes is the first step. And then as we observe the living system of the natural development, and once we understand those 10 things, then we understand how to adapt the world to it. I think the best luminaries shouldn't spend time writing these open letters to excite dramatic fear, but they should be organizing that conference. Elon Musk and the organization that slips my mind that actually created
Future of Life Institute. Yeah.
Future of Life. They should be organizing that conference now and getting people to sign up to attend and present.
Yeah.
How this is going to change the world, as opposed to drama.
I liked what you said about sort of it won't be a centralized AI. I think I tend to think that maybe that would be better, but then I start thinking, well, wait a minute, if you know, down the line, everyone might have their own individual AI in their pocket, and then they can then, sort of, again, saving power, saving resources and processing time. But then I start thinking, well, then all of these little AIs are going to start fighting with each other, and then we're going to have like a big AI war.
Yeah, exactly.
And then my mind goes off into science fiction again. A lot of things to think about. So, and again, I think the education part of it is so important as well. Getting people that might not understand what an AI is at the moment, start telling everybody that you know. It's like, this is what's out there. This is what might happen. This is what could happen. Be alert about every picture that you see, every video that you watch. It might not be real. It was created to either fool you. Again, we've got April Fools coming up. Like, that's going to be like, I can't wait to see what comes out tomorrow. Like, so speaking of that,
totally.
Speaking of that, since we didn't, the whole news about the AI image fakery with Donald Trump, allegedly getting arrested, like those photos, and then last week the Pope. I fell for the Pope. I don't know if you did.
I was like, that's a cool Pope, man. When did the Pope get into cool stuff?
So I'm always aware of potential political images and political things, because I know that there are people that are working on that. So I'm ready. Like, any image you send me of a politician, I'm like, all right, I think that's fake. But a Pope wearing a cool jacket, if it was like, that's great.
That's so hilarious. The first thing, just last night, I was chatting with my wife. And I was like, you know what I'm shocked by? There's this Nashville shooting, epic tragedy, crazy. And there's a lot of interest in seeing what's in the manifesto, right? Like, we want to understand what caused this.
Right.
And I was like, Lingjia, they're not releasing the manifesto.
Okay.
Just count down the minutes and hours before someone leaks a fake manifesto generated by AI.
Right.
And that could also cause more issues than if they release it, right?
Right.
Like, you're absolutely right. Like, but you see that the insight to even make that prediction is what we want every American and every person in the world to understand, so that when it does happen, they're like, oh, let me first think, is this real or fake, right? As opposed to taking it at real cloth. But when I saw those pictures, that's exactly the kind of thing that's causing anxiety, societal anxiety, right? It was a very compelling picture of the Pope. Trump being arrested was incredibly timely.
Yep.
Everybody wanted it to happen. And this is the danger. When you really, really want something to happen in the world,
that's when your critical thinking skills go away.
Exactly. And you want to believe it. Yeah. And then you'll believe it. And then you'll act on it, right? But the thing is, I call it an overreaction, because we've seen this movie has played many times over, right? Where there's a novel new technology and there's this societal anxiety, and it's never manifested as bad as the fear is, right? And Photoshop, I think, is a great example, because frankly, a great Photoshop technician could have done that Pope picture before there was, GPT
But that Photoshop would have taken how long for a skilled technician to do? True. It would have taken at least 20 minutes or more, and this thing can get spit out in 60 seconds.
It probably would have taken longer. It was so good. It would have taken longer than 20 minutes.
I'm trying to figure out how long it would. I would never be able to do it just with Photoshop. That's why.
Yeah.
That's why I like this idea, because it does democratize the idea of you know what, I really want to for my poster or for whatever, I want a picture of a pope wearing a cool jacket, and just being able to sort of say it verbally and prompt it into an application that gives me power to do things. Now again, I'm not doing it for an evil purpose. I just want a really cool image. To sort of express the idea that I want to do as a journalist or a content creator, things like that. I don't think I would ever veer into the negative part of it, because I generally think
and most won't. And most won't. Right?
But rather than spending a week learning how to do Photoshop and doing all that stuff, it's that's what excites me about innovative technologies. But I'm a good person, so I understand that there are people that aren't so good as well. So, all right. So, have you experienced GPT-4 since it came out? I think it was right on the cusp the last time we talked.
Yeah. So I've tinkered with it. I've tinkered with it a bit.
Yep.
And I've read a good bit about it. I think it's interesting, right? Because they're including images, which makes total sense.
Yeah.
Into these large language models. So we're seeing how we would describe it technically is, now we're seeing these multimodal large language models being built in various ways. So I think that's the big advancement. Of course, it's better trained. It's able to grab more understanding and insights around the world. So it outperforms GPT 3.5 in the same realm of things that 3.5 does. But the fascinating thing is that now it's able to capture these high level understandings about the images of our world, right? So beyond just reading the text of the internet, it's also understanding and interpreting the images that you'll find on the internet too. Yep. So it's a model that both can listen to what people are saying and see what people are saying. But there's a distinction between the GPT-4s of the world and the chat GPTs of the world. There are kind of two types of AI. GPT-4 and 3.5 and those GPTs are models that are trained to understand everything it can about the world. And then it can be applied for many different tasks, many different things you might want to wrap that model in. You might want to wrap it in a product that solves a particular problem. And the intelligence of what's in the world is now applied to your solution to that problem. Something like ChatGPT is essentially a wrapper around something like GPT-4 or GPT-5, where it's actually the model conditioned to do one thing well. In the case of ChatGPT, it's question and answering interactions.
Right.
So a GPT-4 whole cloth wouldn't produce a chat bot as compelling as ChatGPT out of the box, but it has in it an incredible amount of knowledge that would then, if the same ChatGPT wrapper was applied to it, would be ChatGPT 2.
Right. So, so you're still excited about the technology and where it's going.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's a phenomenal direction. I think the only problem that exists now is there's a bit of a monopoly of those kinds of technologies realizing these advancements in OpenAI.
Yeah.
Like when you look at even the Googles and even Microsoft's own other version of a large language model that was in Bing.
They're still using that?
No. I mean, and it's not ChatGPT, as you get it on OpenAI. Those are attempts to catch up and to participate because they see a market that they're losing. But it's not democratized where many different institutions, whether it be universities or companies, are actually all innovating at the same time. So I actually want to see a world where more folks are innovating on these technologies, and we're not just waiting to see the next thing from OpenAI.
Right.
But yeah, I'm absolutely excited about the technology.
Okay. So talking about the competitors, we saw that Google came out with Bard, and have you tried that at all yet? Or
yeah. So So I've seen its output,
Yeah.
right? So I haven't played with it directly myself and tinkered it, but I've seen A/B comparisons between what's produced.
Yep.
It's clear that the methodology, the way that ChatGPT was trained, it's clear that that was not applied to Bard.
Okay.
Bard is much more the old school GPT-3 style of training, which didn't condition it for phenomenal understanding of conversational AI in a question and answering system.
Yeah.
That's primarily why these other systems aren't as good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
The way that ChatGPT was trained is they use a lot of humans to write what the model should say
Okay.
to improve it upon GPT-3,
Yep.
right? So you
Yep.
have your model that learned from the internet,
Yep.
but then you have to have a human in the loop and coach the model
Right.
and train it. And indeed, they took the coaching and they were able to take that coaching and turn that into a model. And then you had two models training each other. It's using a process called PPO, but where it's reinforcement learning. So they had a trainer model teach a student model, right?
Yeah.
Like a ChatGPT, and I'm just simplifying, and a GPT-3, and then that's how it got good. The systems we're seeing like Bard and the Bing's thing, it's very clear from their outputs that kind of reinforcement learning with humans in the loop
Yep.
was not applied to those models. And so
Okay.
that's why they don't seem as smart.
Yeah,
They didn't get the extra coaching.
It did feel like so I got an invite and I was amazed at how quickly I was allowed in because
Yeah.
usually it takes a few weeks for me to get invited into anything, and
Yeah.
I tried it and it just and of course Google, there's so many levels of warnings about like the output, like they are trying to protect every angle, and so
Yeah.
the results that you get are just kind of like dull and boring, and so I equate like ChatGPT and some of the stuff that was in the Bing was like your crazy uncle at Thanksgiving, where Bard is more like your dad, and safe and reliable, and doesn't want to
Yeah.
make any waves. Whereas crazy uncle over there, he's gonna just do whatever he wants, and and that's
Yeah.
what Microsoft was sort of pulling back too. They're like, we're gonna limit
Yeah.
this so that we don't get a lot of the hallucinations and really freak out
Yeah.
people of where this could go.
Exactly.
So that's my thoughts on that. So Jason, again, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Of course.
I love talking about this stuff with you. So we'll definitely have you back whenever whenever another
Beautiful.
big thing blows up in the world of AI.
I know.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, man. All right, that's all.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yep, that's all the time we've got for today's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel, and add any comments that you have below. And join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.